not good. We have a list of good hormones here, and we go into this in detail in our fat loss programs. But these hormones, along with the quote-unquote bad hormones, regulate the level of fat in the body and your appetite. And we talked about leptin, about how if the leptin is directly correlated, it's directly proportional to the level of fat in the body. So as fat levels go up, your leptin levels go up, and your leptin initially tries to regulate the amount of appetite, the appetite you have, and keep you from going to the junk food, going to gorge on foods and processed foods. But if that is denied, if that is ignored, we now know that once your brain or you ignore the signals from your body to tell you to stop eating, that the leptin continues to increase and increase and increase, and eventually it comes to a level when your brain accepts high levels of leptin as normal, and therefore you begin to just crave food, and you get hungrier and hotter, and eventually you become quite fat and unhappy. And again, the hormone leptin plays a key role in that. Let's talk about stress. And again, Dr. Steve does a lot of work on stress and does a lot of teaching on mind-centering techniques with a heart math, and really fascinating stuff that he talks about. I think we do have one of his classes in MP3 format and the slides that go along with it. But the thing about stress is that your body is also primed to take care of emergencies, and we call it the flight or fight mechanism. And of course, there's the freeze mechanism, where you do neither. You just stay put. You're just petrified. I guess that's where they got the word petrified from. You're like a stone, a rock. That's what petros means, petrified. And that's when your systems, your fight systems, just go into overdrive, and you can't do anything. You're frozen. And basically, again, that has to do with hormones. Now, here's the problem. This was only meant to be a temporary, transitory thing. Like, for instance, in the old days when you had to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. I mean, you only run away for about 30 seconds, and then it's either the tiger's eating you up or you're hiding in a cave somewhere. It was not meant, you were not meant to have those hormones coursing through your system indefinitely. Unfortunately, for most Americans, that is the case. Because of this high amount of stress, we're in a financial situation now, and people are losing their retirement, they're losing their income, they're losing their jobs. I was at Starbucks the other day, and they were recruiting and interviewing for jobs. I was shocked, folks. I was totally shocked at the number of people in their 50s who are applying for jobs as baristas. As baristas, folks. These are those jobs that they were applying for or interviewing for were jobs for kids who just leave high school and looking for a job to do, or people in high school. I was shocked at the number. So there is, in other words, folks, there's a high level of stress in their environment, especially in this country today. And so I guarantee you that these people have high levels of stress hormones in their body. And in the notes that you're going to get soon, I actually spent hours preparing these notes. But I didn't have the bibliography in place, and since we want to do everything right, we decided to hold off for a while, and probably you get the notes before the weekend is over. And bottom line, we now know that these hormones can have some devastating effects on the immune system, on your bones. Depression, for instance, causes bone destruction and osteoporosis. And what happens in depression is that there's a lot of stress hormones that are coursing through your system and being released. So this response is not a good response, and you need to stay away from it as much as possible. Again, mind-centering, religion, being involved in a good family, social environment, having a job that is matched to your skills and talents and your gifts. All those play a huge role in helping to aid your health. This was shocking when I saw this. Chronic stress halts the body's natural DNA repairing system. Think about that. And that can potentially lead to the development of cancers. We know that cancers start with damage to DNA. Chronic stress does that. Well, you better believe it. I was talking with Dr. Siegel a while back, and he was talking about even loneliness. They're finding out that people who are lonely over long periods of time actually have damage to their DNAs. So all these so-called soft sciences that people have poo-pooed on, they're beginning to realize that they actually play a huge role. I mean, the fact that we can't measure happiness or peace does not mean that it does not have an organic effect on the body. And I alluded to this earlier, but the root of all evil, what we've found out is that this hormone right here, insulin, is the research that is out there on insulin is just exploding. There's a doctor by the name of Dr. Ron Rosedale, who is one of the pioneers in the research on insulin. And it is amazing what this single hormone, the damage it can do. And when you think about insulin, folks, you think about diabetes, of course. And then we think, well, it's either in people with diabetes mellitus, it's either that they are not secreting enough insulin or their pancreas is shot, which is the type 1, or their body is insensitive, their muscles, their tissues are insensitive to insulin, and therefore drugs are given to either increase the amount of insulin in the body or to increase the sensitivity. But whatever the case may be, they're finding out that people with diabetes, even people with cardiovascular disease, people with cancer, people with stress, they are finding out that these people have high levels of insulin, which they are finding out is a root cause of many of the damage that we see today. Insulin, high levels of insulin, what Dr. Ron Rosedale has been doing is that he's been focusing on the hyperinsulinemia. Hyper means a lot of insulin. Hyper means a lot. Insulinemia means insulin in the blood. He's focused not on the disease as much as he has focused on the levels of insulin. He has focused on bringing them down. What he has found out is that when he brings that levels of insulin down, many of the symptoms tend to abate. And so, unfortunately, we have not been trained to look at insulin as the problem. In diabetes, for instance, we look at high levels of blood glucose, and we attack that high level of blood glucose, and we try as much as possible to bring it down, which is correct. But we tend to neglect the other factor, which is insulin. And there are ways to reduce insulin. Again, stress, they found out that stress has a very strong correlation with insulin levels. We also know that cancers actually have to thrive on hormones to function. Some breast cancers, some uterine and ovarian cancers, because of oversecretion of certain hormones, which make the tissues proliferate. Estrogen, for instance, helps tissues to proliferate. Now, there's a lot of controversy between, or some people say, well, it's not estrogen that causes it, it's the hormonal therapy, the synthetic estrogen that causes it. I'm not going to go into all this, but we do know that there is a hormonal component in many cancers. And in fact, some cancers actually secrete hormones, like some lung cancers secrete hormones. So again, the endocrine system plays a key role in all these things. Let's talk about aging. We know also that the whole aging process is because of two things: continual free radical damage and silent inflammation. And we've talked in detail about these two topics in our other webinars. But the thing is this: wherever you have a cell in the human body, wherever you have a cell in the human body, it is liable to be damaged by free radicals. And over a period of time, as long as you're on this earth, as long as you're under the blue dome of heaven, you will be assailed by free radicals. And that continual exposure will eventually take you to the grave, some way or the other. And by the way, Terry, do you know what's the mortality rate over there in California?
I don't know.
Well, I know over here. I know what it is over here. Steve, how about you?
I don't pay attention. I pay attention to the good, happy stuff.
All right. I know you do. Bottom line, mortality rate is 100%.
Oh.
Everybody's gonna die. I know that's pretty morbid, but somewhere or other, everybody's gonna die. And one of the things that